All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining this webcast on the total economic impact of Tableau. My name is Charles Schaefer. I'm presenting today alongside Dean Davison from Forrester Consulting. And Tableau commissioned Forrester Consulting to perform a study about the total economic impact of Tableau, quantifying the costs and benefits into a model, which will help you understand the types of benefits our customers are seeing today. And first, I'll tell you a little bit about Tableau, our company, and our products. And then Dean will cover the study, what he's learned about the value customers are receiving from Tableau and how you can use this methodology to quantify the benefits within your own organization. So our mission at Tableau is to help people see and understand data. We emphasize the people part of this sentence because everyone can benefit from putting facts at the center of their decisions. And Tableau isn't the first software ever to offer reporting or analytics. If you're listening to this webinar today, you may have had some experience with other technologies that do these things. And the perspective that is held by a lot of people we talk to when we talk to them the first time is that they should think about analytics kind of like a cost center. They should optimize for cost. And they should assume that the benefit they can get from analytics is roughly equal from technology to technology. And it's that perception that we'd like to challenge today. What we typically see with analytics initiatives is that they're highly focused on the technologist, the person who can operate the tools needed to create reports and dashboards. And the problem that we see with this approach is that reports and dashboards are often met with new questions because the people who use the reports are usually business people and they have the most context around the data that's relevant to their jobs, but they typically have the least technical experience. And this is a much larger group of people than the people who are writing and creating the reports. And so they end up creating a bottleneck where there isn't enough technically skilled labor to find all the answers requested by the business. So this is why Tableau was invented, to lower the barrier to entry for analytics. And when it's first introduced into an organization, the impact typically is the number of people capable of authoring analytics gets much bigger, and people who are curious about data can explore it on their own. And as analytics initiatives evolve, we notice that people typically fall into one of these three buckets. Some people are still best served by viewing analytics created by others, but there's a larger group of people who are creating content and exploring data. They're sourcing the questions and they're closer to the business, so they have the context to provide relevant insights. And there's still a place for specialists because sometimes highly strategic or sensitive questions need to be answered, and designers and technologists are the right fit to help make sure those questions are answered clearly and correctly. So how does Tableau do all this? Well, I'm sure you've heard other companies make similar claims, and central to our strategy of helping people see and understand data is building technology that leverages what people are good at. And our brains are wired to pre-attentively notice things that is presented in front of us. People process numbers slowly and inefficiently, but we see almost instantaneously, and we detect patterns immediately. And our technology is centered around putting data in a form that our visual system can make sense of in order to harness that power. So take all the charts and graphs and visualizations ever created and shatter them into their primitive pieces and unravel their DNA into their core components, such as axis and label, mark, color, shape, orientation, geometry, geography. And then build a single language that lets you flexibly compose all of those affirmation pictures. And this is the central innovation at the core of Tableau. They are the words in the language of data visualization. So let me show you how we do that. Let me show you a quick software demo. This is a visual dashboard that tracks sales and profit information for a retail store chain. Like many analytics and business intelligence products, Tableau provides the ability to distribute visual interactive dashboards in a zero-footprint web setting. And as I mentioned, the problem that occurs when using these types of dashboards is that they inevitably lead to new questions. In this example, I can explore different combinations of product category. I can look at my salespeople and see how they're performing. And I can even see that someone else has found an interesting insight with this data set. Our VP of sales is commenting that she's noticed our Q4 profits in furniture are down, and she wonders if there's a weakness in the East. To answer these questions, I need to analyze the data outside of the guided interactivity that was built in by the dashboard designer. And this is what sets Tableau apart from other products. With Tableau, it just takes one click for me to be able to ask a question of this data with my own natural language. Furniture profits in Q4 2018. Tableau interprets this phrase into an analytic query and shows me a visual result. This answers my first question. I can see that our profit started poorly in the first month of the quarter and then improved. But now I have another question. What about the East region? If I type in by region, Tableau remembers the context of my original question and adds the region into the visualization. And now I can see that our profit has been relatively consistent in the East. Okay, so I've answered the VP of sales questions, but now I have some of my own. I want to explore what's going on with profit and see if I can answer the question about what are the factors that are causing us to have profit issues in certain areas. So I'll save this workbook and I'll open it in Tableau's edit mode, which allows me the full visual drag and drop exploration capabilities that Tableau provides. I'm interested in whether our salespeople's discounting practices are causing profit issues. My business has a policy that says discounts over 30% aren't allowed. And it doesn't seem to be a problem by region, but what about by category? Okay, not a problem there either. What about by state? Okay, wow. So now I can see that in some states we're discounting quite heavily. So I'll add this detail as a KPI, where our average discount is greater than 30%. I want to call that out visually. And I can do that with just a drag and drop. Now I wonder how this is influencing our profit by state. I'll create a new view that shows that piece. Tableau is automatically built to recognize geospatial fields, so it can leverage the human mind's tendency to look at geographic information as a map. And I can see that some of the states where we're discounting heavily also have profit issues. And that's an interesting correlation I wouldn't have found in the original dashboard. Now, so far I've been exploring data according to my own intuition. But what happens when I don't know what question to ask? In this situation, I can see visually that we're offering really high discounts in the binders category in the central region. And just by clicking on that data point, I can ask Tableau to explore my entire data set and come up with an explanation. Tableau runs hundreds of statistical models and comes up with the solution that it thinks best represents the data. And in this case, it finds that there's a disproportionate amount of the data in the state of Texas, where we're offering higher discounts than in other categories. And I can even add that to my workbook for further analysis. Now I'll create a dashboard with my findings. I want to include my view that shows discounts by state, my map, and my highlight table where I can look up different discount totals. And I'll make this view interactive so someone can make selections and filter their analysis as they go. I've gone from question to answer to another question, another answer, to finally an insight that's going to require some action. We should go now reiterate our discount policy with certain sales reps. And I've done all of that in just a few minutes. And at Tableau, we call that analytics at the speed of thought. Okay, now I'll head back to slides. All right. So just to summarize, reporting and dashboards are important, and they tell you what has happened. We had an issue with our profit in the example I showed. But to unlock deeper insights and value, you need to explore why things are happening. And only if you have both of these can you get the full benefit for your organization. You need dashboards, the products that allow people to explore a subset of information, and you need visual analytics, the exploration, the ability to ask why and iterate through your data. And for an organization to benefit from this, they need the ability to deploy it at scale. So we've taken that invention and we've built a full enterprise platform around it. From accessing data to tools to help prepare and clean data for analysis, to governance and certification, security to make sure data is distributed to the right people, to machine learning content to help distribute the right analytics to the right people, to advanced analytics to help people surface better insights in their data, and collaboration tools to help people share insights across the entire enterprise. And we surround that with everything you need to keep your analytics environment secure and remain compliant, as well as the ability to automate processes via APIs and make data actionable. And one of the things that's really special about this platform is it's very flexible. It can be deployed on premises or in the cloud or as a hosted service. It can be deployed on any operating system. You can connect to data live or store it in our in-memory data engine. It allows customers to take the infrastructure they've always invested in and apply it to the Tableau platform. And this is one of the major reasons why we have tens of thousands of organizations that depend on Tableau today. It's become a mission-critical platform for Fortune 500 corporations and small and medium-sized businesses and government agencies, universities, research institutions, and even nonprofits. But we wanted a way to quantify all of the great stories we were hearing from our customers. And the funny thing is, so many customers have come to us and told us these amazing things they were able to achieve through better understanding of their data, and we weren't sure what we could believe. We weren't sure what we could quantify about those use cases. And so that's why we hired Forrester Consulting to put their methodology and their credibility behind this problem. So with that, let me turn it over to Dean Davison to go over the study and his findings.
Thank you so much, Charles. I really appreciate that overview, and it is indeed consistent with the findings that we found. And yes, when Charles and team came to us at Forrester and told us some of the stories and began to share these anecdotes with us, we also said, wow, those are some really good stories. Let's see if we can capture those and bring those into a more structured analysis. And in fact, that's what we've done. So let me talk to you a few minutes about the findings of that analysis. What I want to do is start with a little bit of what is a TEI? What is this thing we call total economic impact? And then we'll talk about some of the high-level results and then dig into the numbers and show you the answers, the results that Forrester came to. As we go through that process, though, I want to be very clear that this is an abbreviated presentation of a more comprehensive analysis. There is a comprehensive study that is available from Tableau, and it has all of the details of our modeling, of our assumptions, of the way we did calculations. And the value of getting that more comprehensive study is that it shows all of our work, if you will. And it allows you to see how we went about something on the Forrester side and adapt it to your circumstances and your situation so that you can perhaps use the model as a starting point or a jumping off point to doing your own analysis and understanding what impact a tool like Tableau could make on your organization, how it might impact the results of your company. So with that, let's jump in and talk a little bit, just for a few seconds, about what TEI is. The first thing we do is we look at both hard benefits and costs and soft benefits and costs. Hard benefits and costs are those that actually trickle down to a financial statement. They actually save you money or they actually make you more money. The soft benefits and costs get into things such as productivity or an impact on people or culture, depending on the situation. Most of the benefits that we were able to articulate and document for Tableau are hard benefits and costs, but we'll talk about some soft ones as well. We also talk about flexibility. What are the types of capabilities that appear 2 or 3 years down the road that you, as someone who's considering Tableau, may not even be thinking about, but that customers who've already gone down that journey and maybe 3 or 4 years ahead of you in terms of the analytics and the things that Charles just talked about, that they've already recognized as ways that Tableau impacted their organization that they didn't anticipate or they hadn't thought about when they first got started. And then we also use an approach to risk adjust all of these benefits to anticipate what is the likelihood that this benefit will be realized across a wide range of readers and people like you who are looking at the study. To do all of this, we start over on the left, and we do some due diligence. That includes reaching out to people within Forrester who are experts in tools like Tableau, as well as speaking with some of the people like Charles who are experts on the Tableau side and understanding a hypothesis of what it is we should expect to hear and preparing. And then we go in and we interview those customers. We walk through the process then of building the analysis based on that. And I'll talk more about some of these steps like what a composite organization is here in just a minute. All of that being said, though, I do want to just remind you that this is an abbreviated version of the more comprehensive study. It is commissioned by Tableau. But even though Tableau introduced us to these customers, they did not participate in any of the interviews, and that Forrester retains full editorial control of the document, and this study should not be in any way construed as an endorsement of Tableau. But it is a complete and thorough representation of what Tableau customers told Forrester and the way we did our analysis and then turned that into a study that we've turned back over to Tableau. So what are the high-level findings that we encountered in this study? At the most macro level, or the highest level, of course, before Tableau, the organizations were struggling to empower business users with relevant data in a timely fashion. There was a lot of data floating around the organization. Sometimes it was in systems, sometimes it was in spreadsheets. There were a number of analysts who were running around chasing projects, trying to support executives, trying to enable decisions. Sometimes there were data inconsistencies across the organization, different definitions, different approaches, different ways of doing calculations, and so forth. And what really allowed Tableau to make an impact on these customers that we interviewed is that it brought consistency and enterprise-wide systematic approaches to all of those problems. And it allowed, as Charles indicated, it allowed a greater number of business users to get involved in making decisions. It gave them access to data that they previously had to ask somebody else to go get. And so the timeliness, the accuracy, in many cases, the multiple iterations of refining data that used to take place over sometimes weeks now could take place with one person who was an executive, clicking through some data components and doing it almost on their own in a very short period of time, making those decisions, asking those qualitative questions, making those judgment calls. And so they were able to redirect, because of that, some of the analyst time from things like creating dashboards to higher value add tasks and finding ways to leverage data to drive business outcomes and put data into the hands of those people out on the front lines. So in all of that, what we found was we calculated a return on investment of 587% of the customers that we interviewed, and a payback time of their investment in Tableau of less than 3 months. And so there was this almost immediate return on investment, this immediate benefit to the organizations. Now, having said that, it's important to know that the companies we interviewed crossed a wide range of geographical and business model or business use case type situations, from e-commerce companies to supply chain to a company that sells actually technology products to a financial services company, and those in travel and entertainment to those in transportation and some other companies that we didn't have room for here. And so we have this wide, diverse set of customers. And what I can start with is to say they all had a similar experience. Now, their journey differed based on their business case, on how they do business, on the way they get value. But every single one of them had a typical journey, and we're going to talk about what that journey is. At a high level, the journey that they went on was starting on the left, these key drivers and challenges. These are the things that were the problems they were dealing with. And I've already covered these in a little bit in earlier slides, but data, tons of data, but the inability to do anything with that data, the inability to get data into the right hands of the right people at the right time to make the right decisions. And that streamline of decision-making and information and conveying that data, as Charles outlined a few minutes ago, was the most significant benefit that came from Tableau. There was also this idea that this cultural shift that happened with these companies as they went from the problems and the challenges over to the results, and that is they became data-centric companies. Data and the trust in data became a cultural element of their company. They began to have a culture of what does the data say, and started to displace intuitive decision-making or the opinion-based type decision-making that many companies have had for decades. And it also allowed, in some companies, they felt like they were behind or they were falling behind where their competitors were in terms of decision-making and analytics. And so Tableau enabled the companies to sort of catapult past those problems and quickly catch up or accelerate to even supersede their perception of some of their competitors. So that is the journey that all of these organizations went on. In the words of one of the customers, they said, we took the same information that in this case had previously been in a 6 to 10-page report and packaged it into a digital report that was unique to a manager's area and responsibility, and they did it 3 times per day. So again, we see this dramatic shift in the ability to take data that was previously buried, that was previously in probably a PDF report in someone's email, and update it 3 times a day. Now, without telling you which of the organizations that was, I can tell you that the impact of that change all by itself to that organization was worth millions of dollars a year. And I'll talk more about the specific examples and ways that people realize benefit. But that change right there that we just talked about in that quote was very significant to that company and to their profitability. Now, I talked about the fact that we interviewed 8 different Tableau customers. And as we start to build a single financial model and come and boil that down to a single return on investment, we at Forrester can't simultaneously handle 8 financial models. So what we do is for the purposes of this study, is we create what we call a composite organization. What that really is a set of assumptions of the size, the scale, the complexity of the company that we're going to talk about. And then we build the financial model to those specifications. So what we did in this case is we built a model to a company that started with 50 users in year 1 and expanded that to 1,500 users by the 3rd year. Now, that may be much smaller than many of you might experience. It was smaller than some of the organizations that we spoke to. Some of the organizations started with 10 or 20 in the first year, and then after 6 months started to grow into the hundreds. And then by the end of the 3rd year, they were talking about 5,000 to 10,000 users. So again, there's this set of assumptions, and we want you to be aware of those assumptions so that as you scale or adapt this basic foundational model to your situation, you understand all of those dynamics. In each of the cases of the customers we interviewed, they all went through this precipitous increase in the use of Tableau. They started with a small team, often a technical team, who deployed Tableau. They used it in a limited way. They experimented with it. They brought in a few users. They often used it to solve one particular problem or get information to one particular group of people where there was a high priority need. And then it became so easy to use, and it became so well understood of what a powerful tool it was, that there was this rapid increase in the adoption. So that what happened is the people who were sponsoring the Tableau work internally, one of their statements was, do not go out and sell this. inside your organization. Now, Charles may not like to hear that, but what they heard was don't go out and promote this across your organization because you are already going to be overwhelmed. And you are going to have too many people across your organization coming to you and asking to get on board, to get involved in the Tableau experiment. And that was the advice of those organizations because they already had difficulty keeping up with that precipitous increase in demand and users and organizations wanting to get in and be a part of the Tableau story. We also talked about the distribution of the types of users. Throughout this growth, there's users that are creators, those who are developing content, organizing data, and sitting often in some cases even behind the scenes. Then there's a set of users who are maybe power users. Maybe they used to be the analysts, the people who were doing a lot of the data. But then there's that large group in the bottom, the 60 to 65% of users who are executives, who are often decision makers or who are close to those decision makers. And what you're really doing, the main power of Tableau in our analysis is that you are putting the power of that data into the hands of those viewers and allowing them to not just look at data, but to actually play with it a little bit, to manipulate it, and to understand some of the nuances and dynamics of that data. And that becomes the main power of putting data into the right hands of the right people to make the right decisions at the right time. Now, having said all of that, in Forrester's analysis, we boiled down all of the different stories that we heard from those different customers, and we put that into 3 distinct benefit areas. The first one is an accelerated speed for evaluating and making decisions. This is the benefit that comes from decision makers having better access to data themselves, and reducing the lag of an executive who calls an analyst, and the analyst creates a report, and then the report is sent to the executive, and then the executive reviews it and says, well, that's not quite what I was looking for, and sends a clarification back to the analyst, who then creates a different report who sends it to the executive. And this iterative approach that often takes 3 or 4 weeks to hone a report and get it to be the right piece of data, in which time by then the decision that was originally being considered is completely forgotten. But the ability to do that, and we're going to talk about how we calculated and did that math here in just a minute. The second one is the increased efficiency of business operations. This is a benefit that impacts each of the organizations that we have some fantastic stories, but it was very unique to the business case of the organization. So we're going to share that, but a net impact on their business activities themselves. And then the third one is less important. It's still a factor that we want to take into account in financial decisions, but it's really just that organizations were able to retire some of the previous tools and products that they were using and avoid some license costs. So with that, let's jump into the first one of these. What we found in our analysis is that the average user, the average executive, saved 30 minutes a day. Now that may sound simple, but think about 30 minutes every day, 2.5 hours a week. And if you start to project that over thousands of users, now in our case, we started with, as I said, 50 users in year 1 and expanded that to 1,500 users in year 3. But you've got 1,500 people saving 2.5 hours a week. And so what you start to see is the financial value of that. It's a productivity gain. It's largely a soft benefit, as I described very earlier on about the difference between soft and hard benefits. But it makes a significant impact on the productivity and the efficiency of these organizations. More importantly, however, is what it does to the second benefit, which is the ability of these organizations to make decisions that actually impact the bottom line. Now here in this one, I mentioned that there was a lot of diversity. So let me give you some examples, and I want to protect the anonymity of the companies that we interviewed. So I'm going to try to share with you a little bit of an abstraction of what happened. But we had one organization who was in the let's just say the transportation industry, and they had a significant cost to their business of fuel consumption. And by using Tableau, putting it in the hands of people who were on the front lines, who were making decisions about vehicles and patterns and transportation, this organization was able to significantly reduce the cost of fuel consumption across its entire company, across its entire operations, rather significantly. So again, data in the right hands of the right people out on the front lines. Well, another organization, another one of these was a company that handles a large fleet of vehicles. And what they did is they were able to buy and sell those vehicles at different times in a way that allowed the company to optimize its depreciation expense and to actually reduce its costs. Again, each of these benefits was worth millions of dollars, or in some cases even hundreds of millions of dollars to their bottom line. There's also one where there was a significant increase in customer satisfaction. We talk about each of these examples in a little bit more detail in the full study, that comprehensive study that you can get from Tableau. But hopefully you understand we're trying to protect the anonymity of these companies who shared their experience and protect them in exchange for them being willing to share the details of their experience. For the purposes of calculating the ROI, Forrester used the example that was the annual depreciation cost that the organization had. This company, I told you they had a significant fleet of vehicles. Their normal depreciation cost was in the neighborhood of $450 million. Now, again, I've talked about anonymity. That number has been slightly modified to protect the company, so don't go try to Google $450 million in depreciation and figure out who it is, because it's not going to work. But we take and start with a depreciation cost of $450 million a year, which was representative of what the company was experiencing. And what they told us is that they experienced a 2% decrease in that, and 15% of that they would attribute to Tableau. So what they're saying is, we made a lot of other decisions. We had to act on this. Tableau gave us the data. Tableau put the information in our hands, but we still had to change policies. We still had to act. We had to get people to take actions and make decisions along the way based on the data from Tableau. But they attributed 15% of that benefit to Tableau. And even then, the benefit that they would attribute to Tableau on impacting their annual depreciation expense was almost $2 million over 3 years. Now, this is the biggest challenge. It was a difficult one, and this is going to be the one that's going to be hardest for you as listeners to apply to your situation. But I will repeat, every single one of the companies that Forrester interviewed had an example like this, of where Tableau came in, it put the right information in the right hands of the right people, and it made a significant impact on their business operations. And I would encourage you to be very open-minded to the possibility of how Tableau can change the way that some of your executives are making decisions and optimize expenses in your operations. With that, let's jump on to the third benefit, which, as I indicated earlier, was just a reduced cost of licensing, which was just over $65,000 a year. Just other tools that were being used for information, for analysis, for report dissemination, which was, frankly, a little bit of a rounding error in the overall analysis, but still something we want to call out. Moving on from those benefits, then, there were some additional benefits that customers realized by working with Tableau that they didn't quantify. Either they didn't have the data, they couldn't get the data, or it just simply wasn't feasible to measure. One was this support of an ongoing journey in their company to a data-driven company culture. And I cannot emphasize how much emphasis the interviewees that we talked to placed on that this shift in their company to having a culture where data was the first place everyone turned, and that the executives not only turned to the data, but they trusted the data that they were turning to, which is often a problem. And so this shift in culture was pervasive across the interviewees and consistent. And so, again, anticipating what that benefit would be to you and your company. To anticipate needs and tailor programs for customers. Some of the interviewees talked about the ability of having Tableau that they could actually be a step ahead of some of their customers. They could anticipate where someone was going to want to go and anticipate a problem and need, a product capability that they didn't yet have, and be a step ahead of customers in taking those new capabilities to market. And then the last one was to enable collaboration and innovation in data analysis. That the relationship with Tableau, especially in this case, is that Tableau continued to bring ideas and innovation and new ways to analyze data. Getting someone like Charles on the phone, you heard some of the brilliant thoughts that he put together and the ways to, to visualize data. And having someone like that with his experience to be able to help you continue to push the bounds of data capabilities within your company was a value that these organizations achieved. Now, of course, you can't have a return on investment without acknowledging the investment. And so we do want to point out that there was some investment into 4 categories. One was the Tableau licensing and support, that there was a cost to that. There was also, many of the organizations deployed Tableau in a cloud solution, and so there was some additional cloud compute resources that they used. There was some staffing. It took a little bit of time for the team, the staff to deploy Tableau, to learn how to use it. There was a learning curve. And then there was this one-time cost of some implementation and configuration. Honestly, it took about 3 FTEs, roughly 4 months. But again, most of the organizations said the deployment or implementation was not a significant cost, but they did have some cost doing it. Even for large implementations, however, they started small and then grew over time. So the one-time upfront cost really wasn't that significant. And by the time they were bringing on other organizations and a large number of users, they'd gone up the learning curve so far that it really was almost a nominal or immeasurable cost for them to actually worry about ramping up new organizations and teams. And one executive specifically said, yeah, I just don't even count it as anything I would be able to attribute my time to. We do it, but it's just not a cost. So all of those things being said, Forrester calculates that the total economic impact of Tableau for these organizations provided a return on investment of 587% and a payback of less than 3 months. And with that, I want to thank Charles for letting me share some of these stories, and also thank you for joining us today to talk about the total economic impact of Tableau.